We live in a world that rewards noise, a world where everyone wants to speak, and almost no one wants to understand. You've seen it, a conversation where two people talk at each other, not with each other. Arguments online where everyone shouts, but nobody hears. Moments in your own life where you walk away thinking, I should have listened more. I didn't need to say all that. Most people don't realize this, but the greatest communicators in history, the leaders, the negotiators, the thinkers, the people who move nations, and the people who change the emotional climate of any room, share one uncommon trait. They talk less than everyone else, but they understand far more. This is the paradox of intelligence. The quieter you become, the more you notice. The slower you speak, the sharper your words. The less you reveal, the more people lean in. And today, in this audiobook, you will learn how to build that power inside yourself. Within the next hour, you will see communication in a way you've never seen before. You will understand why your silence can earn more respect than your speeches. You will feel why a strategic pause can be more influential than a paragraph. And you will learn how listening turns you into someone people trust, not because you talk brilliantly, but because you understand deeply. This is Talk Less, Understand More, a full transformational audiobook about the psychology of silence, the intelligence of listening, and the art of speaking only when your words carry weight. In this journey, you will learn why talking less makes you appear smarter, how silence strengthens your presence, how to read people effortlessly, how to build calm awareness that others feel, how to become impossible to manipulate, how to speak only when necessary, and make every word count. The 10 chapters of profound communication mastery, and the secret of understanding what others really mean, even when they don't say it. One line I want you to remember from this introduction is this: silence is not empty. Silence is information. Now, let's begin. Chapter 1. The Power of Less. Why talking less makes you more influential. People think influence comes from speaking well. They're mistaken. Influence begins long before you speak. Influence begins the moment someone feels your presence and senses that you are not rushing to fill the air. Think about the people you admire: the wise mentor, the unshakable leader, the calm negotiator who always gets the deal, the friend who listens without interrupting, the person who speaks slowly, thoughtfully, intentionally. What do they all have in common? They are not addicted to their own voice. They don't fear silence. They don't compete to dominate the conversation. They don't need to win arguments to feel powerful. They understand something most people never learn. When you talk less, your words gain weight. When you talk too much, your words become cheap. And this is not just philosophy. It's psychology. When someone speaks rapidly, constantly, endlessly, our brain stops valuing their words. The abundance reduces the impact. But when someone speaks less, our attention sharpens, our curiosity deepens, our respect increases, our listening improves, our mind elevates their message. This is why minimal speakers are perceived as more intelligent, not because they know more, but because they waste less. Let me ask you something. How much of your communication in the past week was truly necessary? And how much was noise? We speak out of habit, discomfort, insecurity, social pressure, desire for approval, fear of silence, impulse rather than intention. But silence is not empty. Silence is strategic. Silence allows you to observe. Silence allows you to think. Silence allows you to understand the dynamics in the room, dynamics that talkers always miss. Silence gives you time to see what others hide behind their words. It gives you time to see what they fear, what they want, what they're avoiding, what they're hoping for. And when you talk less, you no longer react. You respond. You no longer rush. You choose. You no longer speak to be heard. You speak to change something. Talking less is not about being quiet. It's about being powerful. Chapter 2. The Misunderstood Psychology of Silence. Silence has a reputation problem. People believe silence means weakness. That silence means you don't know the answer. That silence means you're shy, unsure, passive, or avoiding conflict. But here's the truth. Silence is one of the most misunderstood forms of intelligence. Powerful silence is not the silence of fear. It is the silence of strategy. When you stay quiet intentionally, you learn faster, you listen deeper, you observe details others miss. You understand motives hidden beneath language. You catch inconsistencies. You detect emotional tension. You read facial expressions more clearly. You sense the truth. People don't say, "Talking engages your mouth." Silence engages your mind. Talking reveals your thoughts. Silence reveals their thoughts. The talker exposes their weaknesses. The listener collects information. Imagine two people in a negotiation. One rushes to explain, justify, convince. The other listens, watches, waits. Who has the advantage? Psychologists call this the power of the void. The fact that humans naturally feel pressure to fill silence, and the person who resists filling it wins. Because the one who speaks more gives away more. More information, more emotion, more insecurity, more desire, more strategy. You, the silent observer, gain insight they don't know they've revealed. Silence is the doorway to understanding. But here is something deeper. Silence changes your inner world as much as it changes your outer world. When you practice intentional silence, your mind slows down, your emotions stabilize, your awareness expands, your intuition strengthens, your reactions soften, your perception sharpens. Silence becomes a form of self-control, a form of emotional intelligence, a form of mental clarity. You begin to realize you don't need to respond to everything. You don't need to correct everything. You don't need to share everything. You don't need to fill every moment. Silence is confidence. Talking is often fear. Ask yourself, what would your life look like if you spoke 30% less but understood 200% more? This audiobook will show you exactly how to do that. And as we close this opening section, we step into the next chapter where you'll learn the surprising truth. You cannot understand people until you learn to hear what they aren't saying. Chapter 3. Hearing the unsaid. Listening beneath the surface. Most people listen to words, but words are the noisiest, least reliable part of communication. They are the surface, the mask, the story people tell themselves and tell others. If you want to understand people deeply, you must learn to hear beneath the words, because the truth of a person, their motives, fears, desires, insecurities, intentions, rarely shows up in their language. It shows up in their patterns. Let's break down the 3 layers of communication that powerful listeners pay attention to. 1. The layer of what they say. This is the basic level. The words, the phrases, the explicit statements. Most people stop here, but smart listeners know. Words are edited. Words are curated. Words are filtered. People say what they want you to hear, not what they truly feel. So if you stop at words, you miss the truth. 2. The layer of what they mean. This is the emotional layer, the intention hiding behind the language. For example, they say, "I'm fine." They mean, "I don't feel safe sharing right now." They say, "I don't care." They mean, "I care, but I fear the outcome." They say, "Whatever you want." They mean, "I don't want conflict." They say, "It's not a big deal." They mean, "It's a big deal, but I don't want to seem dramatic." Smart listeners are not fooled by the literal message. They listen for the emotional message, the nervous laughter, the tone shift, the hesitation, the tightening breath, the micro silence between words. Those signs are the real truth of a conversation. 3. The layer of what they avoid. Saying. This is the deepest listening. People reveal themselves not by what they say, but by what they avoid. Avoided topics, avoided phrases, avoided details, avoided emotions, avoided questions. Avoidance is a spotlight. It points directly to the hidden truth. If someone speaks extensively about their success but avoids mentioning how they feel, their insecurity is showing. If someone talks about the problem but avoids naming the real cause, their fear is showing. If someone laughs everything off, their vulnerability is showing. Silence exposes what words hide. And the person who understands unspoken tension understands people on a level most never reach. Listening beneath the surface changes your life. When you train yourself to hear meaning, emotion, and avoidance, you become better at reading people. Your relationships become smoother. Conflicts de-escalate quickly. People feel safe around you. You stop taking things personally. You stop reacting defensively. You stop assuming incorrectly. You become someone others trust instinctively. Because people trust those who understand them, not those who talk the most. Listening beneath the surface is a superpower disguised as quiet presence. Chapter 4. Why listening makes you unpredictable, and why that makes you powerful. Let's talk about something unexpected. When you talk less, you become unpredictable. When you're unpredictable, you become powerful. Why? Because people can't read you if you're not constantly broadcasting your thoughts. Look around. The people who overshare, overspeak, and overexplain become easy to understand, and therefore easy to manipulate. Their reactions are predictable. Their emotions are accessible. Their insecurities are visible. Their boundaries are flexible. Their desires are obvious. They reveal too much, so people learn exactly how to influence them. But the person who talks less, the person who listens quietly, the person who doesn't rush to react, that person becomes a mystery. And mystery creates power. Let's break down why. 1. People can't predict a quiet mind. When you speak less, others cannot map your inner world. They don't know what triggers you. They don't know what you fear. They don't know your priorities. They don't know your emotional weaknesses. They don't know your strategy. Unpredictability isn't chaos. It's emotional privacy. The less people know about your internal reactions, the more control you have over any situation. This is why calm listeners command respect, even without saying a word. 2. Talking less forces others to reveal more. When you talk less, something interesting happens. People open up. People fill the silence. People reveal themselves. Silence acts like a psychological mirror. Most people cannot sit in silence without speaking. So they talk. And the more they talk, the more information they give you. Their intentions, their insecurities, their priorities, their frustration, their emotional patterns, their hopes, their blind spots. You learn more by listening than you ever will by speaking. 3. Predictability makes you weak. Presence makes you strong. When people can predict your reactions, they can provoke you. They can push your buttons. They can make you defensive. They can use your emotions against you. But when you respond slowly, speak intentionally, and take your time to understand, you break that control. A calm, observant person is untriggerable. And someone who can't be easily triggered is someone others cannot dominate. 4. Listening gives you strategic advantage in conversations. When you speak less, you gain more time to think. You observe emotional shifts. You analyze inconsistencies. You detect hidden agendas. You understand group dynamics. You keep your energy steady. You respond with precision, not impulse. People often say something like, "Why is it that the quietest person in the room seems to know exactly what to say when it matters?" Because the quiet person was the only one listening. 5. The power of being the calm observer. In any room, there are 2 types of people. 1. The talkers who dominate the noise. 2. The observers who dominate the understanding. You must decide which one you want to be. Talking less doesn't reduce your presence. It enhances it. People sense your awareness. They feel your attention. They sense your emotional groundedness. They notice your self-control. Talking less doesn't make you smaller, it makes you deeper. And depth is unforgettable. Transition. Next, the art of reading people in real time. Now that you understand the layers beneath people's words, the psychology behind silence, the power of unpredictability, the strategic advantage of talking less, you're ready for the next step. How to read people effortlessly, even when they think they're being clear. In the next part, you'll learn how to read emotions people try to hide, how to detect tension instantly, how to sense dishonesty, how to understand someone's intentions before they reveal them, how to read the room with precision, how to interpret silence from others, and how to use observation as a communication superpower. Part 3 takes your listening from passive to master-level awareness. Take a breath. Your perception is about to level up dramatically. Chapter 5. How to read people in real time. Most people observe the world with their eyes half closed, distracted, unfocused, mentally elsewhere. But when you talk less and listen more, something extraordinary happens. The world begins to reveal itself. You start to notice things that were always there, but you were always too busy speaking to see. The way someone's face tightens when a certain topic arises, the microsecond hesitation before they answer, the shift in posture when they become uncomfortable, the sudden stillness when they're hiding something, the flicker of relief when you change direction, the moment their tone betrays their real emotion. This is the beginning of real-time psychological reading. People will tell you everything you need to know, if you know what to watch for. Let's break down the 5 dimensions of real-time listening, the kind that turns you into someone who can understand people faster than they can understand themselves. 1. The emotion beneath their tone. Words lie. Tone does not. Tone carries emotional truth, a forced cheerfulness, a quiet sadness, a masked irritation, a subtle impatience, a hidden insecurity, a rising defensiveness. Most people never notice these shifts because they're too busy waiting for their turn to talk. But you're different now. Tone is your compass. If their tone changes, something beneath the surface has changed. You don't need to ask what. Just observe, and the truth will reveal itself in time. 2. The eyes, the most honest part of a person. The eyes reveal what the mouth tries to hide. People look away when they're uncomfortable, ashamed, anxious, unsure, remembering something painful. People hold eye contact when they're trying to convince you, trying to dominate the space, insecure, and trying to disguise it, emotionally invested, speaking their truth. But here's the real secret. The length of the gaze reveals intention. Too short, avoidance. Too long, performance. Soft but steady, sincerity. Smart listeners don't stare, they notice. 3. Micro-expressions. The 1/25th of a second. Truth psychology reveals something fascinating. People can control their words, but not their micro-expressions. A micro-expression lasts less than a blink, but it reveals surprise, anger, fear, disgust, joy, contempt. This is the truth people wish you didn't see. When you talk less, you finally have the presence of mind to catch these flashes. And once you see them, your understanding of people becomes almost supernatural. 4. Body language. The unspoken conversation. Smart listeners don't look for dramatic gestures, they watch for subtle shifts. Feet pointing toward the exit, shoulders tightening, self-soothing motions like rubbing arms or neck, leaning in, interest, leaning back, defense, frozen posture, fear or pressure, fidgeting, inner conflict. The body never lies. If someone says, "I'm not upset," but their arms are crossed, jaw tight, and breath shallow, believe the body, not the sentence. 5. Energy shifts. The invisible language. This is the highest form of listening. You begin to sense when someone's mood changes, when something feels off, when a topic carries emotional weight, when tension enters the room, when connection deepens. when someone needs reassurance, when someone hides pain behind humor. Energy speaks louder than words. When you talk less, you begin to feel the room. This is what makes quiet people unexpectedly powerful. Their awareness is sharper, their perception is deeper. Their intuition becomes almost impossible to fool. Chapter 6. The Art of Asking Questions That Reveal the Truth. Talking less does not mean being passive. It does not mean letting conversations drift randomly. It does not mean withholding your voice entirely. Talking less means speaking strategically. And one of the smartest ways to speak is to ask the right questions, because the right question opens doors people didn't intend to open. Most people ask surface-level questions. They get surface-level answers. Smart communicators ask questions that bypass defenses, disrupt automatic responses, and bring out deeper truths. Let's look at the 4 types of questions that powerful listeners use to understand the world. 1. Clarifying questions. What exactly do you mean by that? Most misunderstandings come from assumptions. Clarifying questions destroy assumptions. When someone says something vague, "I feel weird about it," "It's complicated," "I'm just tired," "I'm frustrated," it doesn't matter. Smart listeners don't interpret. They clarify. What part of it feels weird? When you say complicated, what do you mean? Tired physically or mentally? What's frustrating you the most? If it didn't matter, you wouldn't have mentioned it. What's going on? Clarifying questions turn fog into clarity. 2. Reflective questions. So it sounds like you're feeling. People feel understood when their emotions are reflected back to them. Reflective questions show emotional intelligence. So it feels overwhelming? So you're unsure what the next step is? So this caught you off guard? So you're worried about the outcome? These questions do 2 things. 1. They show empathy. 2. They invite honesty. People correct you if you reflect incorrectly, which reveals even more truth. 3. Depth questions. Why do you think that is? This is the question that opens the real story. Most people stay on the surface of their emotions. Depth questions guide them deeper. Why do you think this keeps bothering you? Why do you think this pattern repeats? Why do you think this is hard to talk about? These questions gently move the conversation from the conscious mind into the subconscious. This is where the real answers live. 4. Silence as a question. This is the rare skill. Sometimes the best question is no question at all. When you stay silent after someone answers, they almost always continue speaking, and what they say next is usually the truth. Silence invites depth. Silence encourages vulnerability. Silence creates space for honesty. Silence is a question that doesn't sound like a question. Transition. Next, the secret advantage of speaking less in difficult conversations. You've now learned how to read people, how to listen beneath the surface, and how to ask questions that open emotional doors. Next, in Part 4, you will learn how talking less protects you during conflict, how silence disarms aggressive people, how to stay calm when others lose control, how to control the pace of any conversation, how to avoid saying things you'll regret, how speaking less increases your power in emotional situations. This next section is where your communication becomes unshakable. Chapter 7. How talking less gives you power in difficult conversations. Most people fear difficult conversations because they fear losing control. They fear saying the wrong thing. They fear being misunderstood. They fear being attacked. They fear conflict, tension, or rejection. But the truth is this: talking less, not more, is what protects you. Silence is your shield. Calmness is your armor. Awareness is your weapon. Let's explore why speaking less gives you power in moments where emotions run high. 1. Talking less prevents you from saying what you'll regret. When emotions rise, your brain becomes reactive. It moves from logic to defense, from clarity to impulsiveness, from intention to instinct. and instinct wants to respond quickly, too quickly. Studies show that in moments of stress, your brain temporarily loses access to the part responsible for reasoning, long-term thinking, emotional regulation, coherent expression. This is why people later say, "I shouldn't have said that. It came out wrong. That's not what I meant. I wish I stayed quiet." Talking less removes this risk entirely. When your default response is silence, you protect your dignity, your relationships, and your emotional stability. 2. Silence forces the other person to reveal more. In arguments, most people talk to defend themselves. Smart listeners talk less so the other person keeps speaking. Why? Because the person who speaks more reveals more. Their fears, their guilt, their emotional wounds, their confusion, their biases, their insecurities, their true motives. Your silence becomes a mirror that makes them face themselves. And often people realize in real time that their anger is misplaced or their argument is weak, all because you stayed quiet long enough for the conversation to reveal itself. 3. Silence makes you emotionally untriggerable. People lose arguments the moment they become emotional. They lose clarity. They lose power. They lose their ability to choose their response. But here is the secret. Silence is emotional oxygen. It keeps your mind alive when conflict tries to suffocate it. Talking less gives you more breath, more space, more grounding, more control, more inner peace. The less you speak, the slower your emotions rise. And the slower your emotions rise, the stronger your presence becomes. 4. Silence disarms aggression. Aggressive communicators depend on reaction. They push to provoke. They raise their voice. They escalate. They interrupt. They demand immediate answers. But nothing confuses an aggressive person like calm silence. They expect resistance and receive stillness. They expect debate and receive observation. They expect emotional chaos and receive emotional clarity. Your silence forces them to confront their own intensity. Often they soften. Sometimes they apologize. Other times they simply lose momentum. But the result is always the same. Your calm presence wins. 5. Silence allows you to see the conversation, not just feel it. Most people in tension-filled situations get trapped inside their emotions. They stop observing. They stop thinking. They stop analyzing. They stop seeing the bigger picture. Talking less removes you from emotional fog. It lets you watch the other person's body language, hear cracks in their tone, notice inconsistencies, see what they're avoiding, feel when the real issue appears, stay grounded while they escalate. This turns you into a strategist instead of a reactor. 6. Talking less signals confidence, not weakness. Weakness is babbling, rambling, over-explaining, defending, reacting instantly. Strength is breathing, waiting, observing, thinking, responding only when it matters. The calmest speaker often becomes the leader, not because they talk the most, but because they talk the least while understanding the most. Chapter 8. How silence builds respect, trust, and authority. Silence does more than protect you. It elevates you. When you talk less intentionally, people begin treating you differently, and often without realizing why. Let's break down the psychological reasons why silence builds deep respect. 1. Silence makes your words feel valuable. When you speak rarely, people listen closely. Your words have weight because they are not constant. Think of the difference between a song you hear 10 times a day and a song you hear once a year. One becomes background noise. The other becomes timeless. Your voice works the same way. Talking less creates scarcity. Scarcity creates value. Value creates respect. 2. Silence makes you look emotionally disciplined. Emotional discipline is rare. People admire it because they struggle with it. When they see you, not reacting instantly, not exploding, not interrupting, not becoming defensive, not rushing to speak, They assume, this person has control, this person has awareness, this person is grounded, and grounded people are naturally respected. 3. Silence makes you look intellectually mature. Intellectual maturity is not about knowing everything. It's about knowing when to stop talking. Smart people don't overshare, don't dominate the conversation, don't need constant attention, don't need validation through words. They speak when the moment matters, not when their ego wants to be seen. 4. Silence makes people come to you. Something powerful happens when you talk less. People start seeking your opinion. Why? Because you don't offer it constantly. People trust the thoughts you choose to share because you don't share everything. You become the person whose perspective carries weight. You become the voice people look for when the room is full of noise. You become the one people ask for clarity when others give confusion. 5. Silence makes you emotionally safe to others. People feel safe with someone who listens without judgment. They feel safe with someone who doesn't interrupt. They feel safe with someone who doesn't try to dominate or impress. Talking less creates emotional space. People fill that space with trust. They open up more, they reveal more, they show their real selves, and that trust becomes the foundation of deeper relationships. 6. Silence makes you magnetic. Presence is magnetic. Energy is magnetic. Calmness is magnetic. Attention is magnetic. When you speak less, you feel more, and when you feel more, your presence expands. You are no longer just in the room, you influence it. Not through volume, through depth, not through force, through awareness, not through noise, through understanding. Transition. Next, how to master conversations without talking more. Now that you've learned the power of silence in conflict, how silence builds trust and authority, how talking less elevates your emotional intelligence. If any line in this audiobook resonated with you, tap like. Not for the algorithm, but as a promise to yourself to practice what you've learned. Share in the comments. What insight hit you the hardest today? And if you want more audiobooks on communication, confidence, discipline, emotional intelligence, or anything that strengthens your inner life, tell me what topic you want next. Your voice matters, your growth matters, and your quiet power is only beginning. End of audiobook.